Welcome, everybody, to the Advanced Selling Podcast, the longest-running sales training podcast in the history of podcasting. My name is Bryan Neal.
My name is Bill Caskey.
Here every week for your listening enjoyment. Two things we always remind everybody to do. Go join our LinkedIn group and join the Insider Program monthly live training with my friend Bill Caskey. And biggest bang for your buck, I always say, in sales training, coaching, live stuff. Great community, too. It's great people.
It is a good community, a lot of back and forth between the members. And if you haven't checked out the calendar for the year, we have a March episode training coming up. You can go to advancedsellingpodcast.com/insider. The whole year is laid out for you.
That's great.
Yeah.
You know what's coming?
I had a funny thing happen. You know, we've laughed on this show about how I'm not a DIY guy.
Yeah.
You look at my tool chest kit out. I wouldn't even call it it's a thing on rollers that has a lot of crap piled on top. And I kind of know where it all is, though. So if you say, look, I need some caulking, okay, I can find that. But I'm just not cut out for that. So yesterday we had everybody over. Yesterday was my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. I forgot.
Yeah,
Shoot.
okay.
I had that all queued up. Dang it. Happy birthday.
Everybody came over, and the idea was Cody, my son-in-law, Kara's husband, was going to help us put up these curtain rods because we got some new blinds and they had to be pulled off the wall a little bit. Anyway, it's not something that I could do it, but you know, when you have a young person who's in construction, he can do it in probably 5 minutes. It would take me an hour. Right. But Kara had a kind of emergency trip to the hospital. Everything's fine, but she had some real bad stomach issues. She gave birth about 2 weeks ago. It's pretty normal, you know, constipation and stomach stuff. Anyway, so they took her out. So obviously, not only was I concerned about her, but I was concerned this job was not going to get done. This curtain job was not going to get done because I could see his mind was somewhere else than it should have been. So I thought, you know what, I'll tackle it. So after everybody left, I'm upstairs, and I must have made 100 trips to the garage to get first a saw and then a screwdriver, and then I'm so unprepared for stuff like this. You know, the ideal thing is to think through, okay, what are all the tools I need? Go to the toolkit, bring them up, put them on my belt, my tool belt, and then go up and go to work. So anyway, I got it done, but the argument was, with Jane was, she got to find a stud. You got to find a stud to put this in. And I'm like, well, aside from the sophomore comedy of stud, I'm like, well, there's 3 brackets and only one, the middle, is in the stud because it's in the center of the window and that's where the stud goes. And I said, she goes, oh, yeah, it's got to be in a stud. Well, that's her father. Her father, Don, was a stud guy. I mean, you know, he never put anything up. The problem with that is that studs aren't always conveniently located.
Right, totally.
Within the wall. Yes. And so then we looked at the studs, and I would have to have gotten a rod to extend the rod. It was way far out. And so finally, and then the fact is the one that was up there was not in stud. So, but I did have a little trouble with the anchor. You know, you put those anchor bolts in and kind of shove them in. If they're not shoved in properly, they'll just turn. And so anyway, it was a good 2-hour project that should have been 10 minutes. And then I had to move something. I'm like, oh God, do I want to do this tomorrow? Nope. You got to do it right now while you got all the tools. So eventually, project completion, DIY number 3 in the last 25 years. Check.
Are the shades up and hung properly?
Shades up, hung properly. Yeah.
Sun is out. It worked.
Looks great. Yeah, it looks great.
That is the stud. Yeah. And I don't do it. I'm like you. Even worse, probably at this point, I won't even try anything. But the stud, I know the guy or the person who you got to be on the studs. And like you said, the studs have been set for 25 years behind the wall. We're not moving the studs. So we either got to have a curtain rod that goes 4 feet
exactly
the window, or just do what you did, which is put it anyway.
Or the way these brackets they came with little anchor bolts, which tells me, they're expecting that
you can't find stud.
Yeah. So I finally told her.
And God bless Don.
And then he's a stud guy. That's a stud finder. She's got the stud finder out there. And
I'm telling you, there's not a man on the earth, regardless of age, who doesn't take that thing to turn around and point at himself and go, there's one. Dee, 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 dee. Every guy knows what I'm talking about. That's if you have a stud finder, you know, when you turn it and it goes, dee, dee, dee. Oh, babe. So we had a little conversation. We get requests all the time of people to be on the show. And usually we don't have people on the show because it's me and Bill talking. And that got us talking about just personalized outreach. And so from a topic standpoint today, we want you to think about what does your voice sound like in your outreach? And by outreach, we're meaning if you're in LinkedIn putting up video content, if you're doing your own podcast, if you're on a podcast, if you're a CEO or VP of sales and you're a guest on a show, or your email outreach, or your cold calling, if you do that, what does your voice sound like? And specifically, have we gone too far in the mass production of things using AI? And should we come back a notch to a more personalized outreach? Mm-hmm. What should we do about that for salespeople? How do we scale organization?
It's a good topic, and it's fresh on our mind because we get a lot of requests to be on the show. And we just talked about one this morning. A young person emailed us, and the more we talked about it, you can always tell the emails that are either A, from a PR firm, or B, from a PR firm and AI generated. There's keywords like delve, skyrocket, game change. if those words are in your pitch to us, I know it's AI and I know it's not authentic. Now, I'm all for using AI on things, but you got to be really careful that it has your voice and it sounds like it's a real human being. And most of the time it doesn't.
Yes.
So there's that. And then there's also this email blast thing where we have gotten to the point where we got to get an email out this week. Okay, well, let's blast one out. And there's no personality to it. It's all very corporate vernacular and marketing jargon. And I think it's time, you're right, Bryan. I think it's time we go back and say, even though it might be a mass email, it might be something we're sending to 300 people. How do we at least make an effort that it sounds a little more personal?
Yes. Or what about this? This just popped in my head. If I'm truly sending a mass email out, let's just call that what it is. Like, we're sending this out to my entire list. If you've subscribed to anything from Bill Caskey in the last 20 years, you're getting this email. Thank you for however I met you. Then it's real because that's real.
That's right.
Versus trying to personalize the 1,000, 4,000 person outreach too much. So
yeah, when I say personalize, obviously you can't personalize to each person, but it's more just the cadence of language. Does it sound like it came from a human or a machine?
Yes.
Yeah. And but yeah, if you could just say, look, this is something that's going out to the masses, and I just wanted to be clear. That tells me that, because the AI would never say that.
Yes.
Trying to hide. Don't try to hide it. Be yourself and be authentic. Yeah.
And I see this. I have a couple of friends who have really big jobs in publicly traded companies, and joke sometimes about and then one's in a company that's technically not traded, but it's owned by one of the wealthiest people on the planet, who has a company in Nebraska that owns a lot of other companies. You can figure that out. Mm-hmm. And the joke, or the kind of the thing that I always ask them about or rib them a little bit about, is when they put stuff on LinkedIn, is it really them? And so two of my friends, it's never them. It's their marketing team is responding, and you can tell. It's so obvious. It's so generic. It's so corporate. It's so machine oriented. It's so safe, blah, blah, blah. And then occasionally my other friend will, he'll pop in, but it's very, very light. And I just wonder what would happen if those people decided to run their own account, so to speak.
Yeah.
If you will, and really get, just get real on LinkedIn and make it your own. And I know some people that do that, where it's them, talking. And
I think you have to.
I do too.
I think you have to. I think as AI becomes more, ubiquitous.
Yeah.
There's a word for it.
I like it. Put that in an email. It's very ubiquitous.
I don't know how to spell it, but
I don't either.
Us. Yeah. Our sixth sense becomes better, becomes stronger. It's going to become super strong. Even when we see something today, even if it's a video, we still have a sixth sense. I'm not sure that's right. There's something about that just doesn't seem right. So your prospects are the same way. They are, their shackles have been risen. And they can tell. So yes, point one. Point number two is, if you are trying to get on a podcast or on a YouTube channel or trying to be interviewed by somebody, that's one of the things that I'm recommending to all of my clients who are in the business to business space, is chances are there is a podcast or alternative media outlet in your space that interviews people like you.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you be on those shows? They're looking for content. You're looking for promotion or for spreading of the word of your message. You should be on those shows. And then the question is, okay, once I find those, how do I land a spot? How do I get invited in as a guest? And that's where this email comes in.
Yes.
And this is where you have to, if it sounds like everybody else, if you're hiring a PR firm, I wouldn't do that. I would just send an email, say, hey, I listen to your podcast. I'm in this space. I really am glad you're doing this. Would it make sense for us to have a conversation to see if I can bring any value to your audience?
Yes.
I mean, it's simple. It's not 17 paragraphs about how great you are.
I know, it's so easy. And people, they want to, and again, nothing against the PR firms, but they want to like mass produce, mass scale this thing. So they blast it out. And then they turn off some people that could really be good, you know, a good connection for them. And what you said, Bill, is so true. It doesn't take a lot of effort to leverage this thing up. It takes a little discipline on your calendar. And if you can sit down and send 3 or 4 of these outreach things to podcast people 3 times a week. If you do 3 per setting 3 times a week, that's 9 times 4. That's 36 a month times 12. Now we're getting to big math. You're going to get on some shows.
That's right.
And that is not a lot of time. It'll take you 10 minutes to do, you know, some direct outreach. And if you're doing it on podcasting, do a voice memo.
Absolutely.
Like, why would you do a voice memo?
Absolutely. That's exactly how I would do it. Even if a video might be overkill, but a voice memo on your phone to the person, you can get phone numbers, or you can email the voice memo.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I would do.
Yes.
You could even mass produce those. They don't have to necessarily be custom, but if you're only doing 10 a week, you can do it custom pretty easily. It's the same script, just have a different first name.
Yes. Can I give an example of something that's just easy to do?
Yes, sir.
This came into my LinkedIn inbox, and my company's called Blind Zebra, and this guy's company is called I got to get it right, Wise Rhino Group. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I saw him connect. I'd sent him in a connection request cold or something like this. He responds almost immediately. A blind zebra and a wise rhino walked into a bar. ... It's very clever.
Yeah.
One sentence, took him 2 seconds to write that. I immediately write back, LOL, too easy. I was thinking I had to send a connect. Saw you tagged in Britt Anderson's post. They're great people. He wrote back immediately, could not resist. Yeah, they're great people and put on a great conference. Cheers to unique company names. Now, he goes, okay, so what? Where does that go? The point is, this guy runs an M&A firm. Seems like a pretty big job. And it just takes a little time out of, and now I'm thinking, oh gosh, if I, could I connect with him? I follow him now. That's so engaging versus the ones that come that are automated. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Hey, Bryan, I noticed we have some mutual connections. I'm always looking to expand my network. Okay. Then an hour later, thanks for connecting. You've always helped one because I reached out with saving 30%. And here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
4-paragraph pitch.
Yeah.
And I just wrote back, no thanks. It's like, I don't know.
When you start this relationship with this person, Wise Rhinoceros, now whenever you're connected now, but you're not just connected.
Correct.
You're connected with a little bit of rapport.
Yes.
And so now when you create content and the Wise Rhino sees it, he sees it differently than if you were just a name in a barrel. It takes on totally different. He feels like he knows you a little bit. So your video is going to get through, and then he's going to refer that video to somebody else. And before you know it, you're going to be sitting in a boardroom somewhere. But it all began with you taking the time or somebody taking the time to have a little fun.
That's it. Yeah. In a sentence. Less than a sentence. An incomplete
30
sentence.
seconds. Yeah.
And here we are talking about him on the podcast. That's how this works.
True. Well,
People
there's
don't
that.
realize that.
His business explodes. Your business explodes.
Wise Rhino sells for 42x multiple after
That's right. Due to a podcast lead.
You never know, though. And then someone listening is going, I work at Wise Rhino, or I know those guys. That's how this works.
But he's got companies, all of whom should be listening to the Advanced Selling Podcast.
Exactly correct.
Everybody wins here in this.
Yes.
And I think if we look too narrowly at it and we push focus in and just say, well, I don't have time to make fun of wise and blind zebras, you're losing the big picture.
Yes.
You're losing the big picture because I think we resort to business, and I'm guilty of it, is business so frequently that we don't spend time with just the personal stuff. Hey, that's kind of cool. You got an animal? I got an animal? Hey,
exactly.
we're kind of the same. All right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it tells me he's paying attention to little things. He's not just like, look like, okay, now sometimes there's nothing there, but anytime there's anything there, I was going through one the other day. This guy, one of my clients just got a new CEO, and I'd heard news of that, but didn't know. And so I'm like, go and look at the new CEO. And I just see that I was a beta. That's a fraternity. I was a beta at Indiana, and he was a beta at MIT. So there's no guarantee that we're going to love each other or anything like that. But we have this little, but you have to scroll down to find it. And most people don't do that. They don't do that next level of just looking. And that's all it takes.
Yeah.
One little thing.
Here's something that I have found. We get a lot of LinkedIn requests because of the podcast. Yep. And whenever someone requests to connect, I always ask, and if it looks like somebody that was legit, then I will always accept, but I'll always say in my acceptance speech, I will always say, how do we know each other?
Yeah.
Or what prompted this connection, or something that's just very simple. And 90% of the time people say it's a podcast, but then I get a little bit more information, and they say, we've been listening for 12 years and we love it and our people. And then I can get back to them. It's not a long conversation, but sometimes if somebody's wants to connect with you, just ask them, how did this come about? And because you might surprise you about how these things happen. Yeah.
And so I think the lesson, if you're listening to this today, is you're asking yourself, how am I taking these little extra steps for personalization? To delve a little deeper. And I think shrinking, the other thing that's coming to mind for me too, in my after I read my little exchange with the Rhino guy, is less is more in this. You can start a little convo with a couple sentences and not this big long earth-shattering idea, world record, for
game changer,
game changer, It's like calm, on that.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, good topic. So I think this, for me, the lesson is even a little gesture can go a long, long way.
Yes.
And if we look at everything like we've got to have 40 million subscribers and 10 million podcasts, you don't. You only need the one that's going to take you to the 5, that's going to take you to the 50, possibly. And you just have to, treat this business like you would if somebody came up to you on the street and said, "Hey, Bryan," you would say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. How do we know each other?" And you would say, "Well, you were, 17 years ago, you did a training for it." "Oh, of course. Why did I not remember you there in the back row? How did I not remember you?" Anyway,
I remember that.
All right.
Okay.
See you next week. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.